So everybody in here knows the story. It's Easter Sunday, and Tanner begins, like almost every other church, he is risen, and it's responded with, indeed. Like, I didn't grow up in the church, so I don't know where that really came from. It's not really in the Bible, this back and forth sort of thing, but it happens in churches, and so we do it. But it doesn't really sound like there's much exuberance from you. I guarantee you yell at your TV screens when the team that you don't like is winning or isn't winning, or things go wrong in your house, or that it's just, there's something missing there. And so we know the story, and CP read it earlier. The ladies come to the tomb early in the morning. You can imagine them sitting at their house kind of waiting as the sun creeps up, because it's still a Sabbath. They can't leave, so they wait, and the sun creeps up, and you can see it kind of, in your own bedroom as it kind of creeps across the floor through the window. Eventually, it's actually sunrise, and they run to the tomb, and they have their spices, and they're ready, and they get there, and there's a weird dude inside, right? Have you ever noticed this? Did you ever read the story? It's not Jesus, there's an angel, but they don't know who he is. They're like, oh, hey, who are you? This is weird. Oh, he's not here. He's not here? And then you fast forward a little and you get this weird kind of foot race between Peter and John, and one of them gets there before the other one, and you don't really know if they let the other one win. Like, you think John maybe let Peter win, even though he's probably the younger one. And so they have this moment of, he's not there. Now, we've heard those stories. But what most of us haven't heard is the prequel. And I know you like prequels. Anybody like The Godfather Part 2 more than Part 1? Does anybody ever watch that? How about, do you like The Phantom Menace? Oh, I'm sorry. But there was 3 prequels to that. Or maybe it's one of those stories where you really like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, because that came after Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it was actually the backstory of Indiana Jones. Or maybe Clint Eastwood, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. There's actually 2 movies. Some of you are like, I have no idea. Well, fine. You need to invest in Netflix and start watching movies. Casino Royale. James Bond fans? The backstory. If you don't have the backstory, you don't quite get it. Batman Begins. You learn why he learned all of his kung fu moves? No? Toy Story? Is there a prequel Toy Story? Okay. It's one of those mornings, y'all. You best call Grandma. You're going to be late for lunch. Here's what I want to do. We've heard the story of the empty tomb. We've heard the story of the angel being there, and the ladies showing up with their spices, and Peter and John, and then the disciples afterwards, and all of these things. And we get the he is risen indeed. But sometimes it's good to put your feet in the shoes of somebody that maybe grasps it a little more. What we need is the prequel of the tomb. What you need is the prequel of the chiseled rock on the wall. What you need is the prequel of the battle between the smell of myrrh and aloe and must and darkness. The struggle of the flickering light within the darkness of the tomb, almost in a cosmic battle of light and darkness on the wall. You need the sweat as it drips down. The struggle that happened before. You see, we find ourselves with a man, and you can imagine that he is dressed well, but the clothes don't ever really fit right. The anxiety sits right here. No matter how many times he feels like he's ready, he's not ready. The moment when he thinks now, it's not now. He's kind of scared. He doesn't really ever get scared, but he's scared. He's waiting. It's almost dark. Now. I think it's now. This is the story of Joseph of Arimathea. Mark chapter 15. It was preparation day. That is the day before the Sabbath. So as evening approached, Joseph of Arimathea, a prominent member of the council who was himself waiting for the kingdom of God, went boldly to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Pilate was surprised to hear that he was already dead, and summoning the centurion, he asked him if Jesus had already died. When he learned from the centurion that it was so, he gave the body to Joseph. So Joseph brought some linen cloth, took down the body and wrapped it in the linen and placed it in the tomb cut out from the rock. Then he rolled a stone against the entrance of the tomb. Now, there's a few things that we can pick up here. One, Joseph of Arimathea is a prominent member within the Jewish ruling council. This is what other people or other historical references call the Sanhedrin. This is 70 leaders, some of them chief priests, some of them regular priests, some of them Pharisees. As we think of Pharisees as bad, but that's really more like what Jesus believed. And some are scribes, the people that wrote things down. He's a member of this group, and a prominent one. Now for us, we go, oh yeah, that's like the leaders at the church. No. This is like the ruling council. If I say words like, or people like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, John Thune, you go, oh, I know who they are. Same thing. He is a member of the ruling council of Israel. Now, he has some clout. Goes boldly to Pilate. Now, you have to remember that Pilate is the guy that if he doesn't like you, he'll just kill you. He represents the greatest force that the known world has ever experienced. And he has to go to him and say, the guy that all of the people were really, really mad about, that you were worried that an uprising was going to happen during the Passover, can I have his body? We also learned that he cut the tomb from the rock. Now, what you have to grasp is this area, the Middle East, has mountainous areas and valley areas, and so you get this up and down, up and down. Think about going out to the Black Hills. You get these areas up and down, and you get these natural caves. You also get areas where there are not natural caves. Somebody chiseled every single rock out of the cave. This is when you go like Needles Highway and you see the big hole. Somebody made a hole in the wall where there was no hole intentionally. Now let's keep moving. We're going to go to Matthew. As evening approached, there came a rich man from Arimathea. His name was Joseph, who he himself had become a disciple of Jesus. And going to Pilate, he asked for Jesus' body. Pilate ordered that it be given to him, and Joseph took the body, wrapped it in clean linen cloth, and placed it in his own new tomb that he had cut out of the rock. He rolled a big stone in front of the entrance of the tomb and went away. So here we find out that he is a rich man, that he's a prominent member of the council, that he has a tomb, but he also has resources. So maybe when he goes to Pilate, he's got a little bit of clout. I mean, here's the reality. Anybody that shows up asking for something and has a little authority and a little bit of cha-ching, you get what you want most of the time, right? I mean, that's the way it works in political worlds. He shows up and Pilate goes, sure. We also find out that while he's a member of the Sanhedrin, the group that condemns Jesus, he's also a disciple. He's a follower of Jesus, which is kind of weird to say, how the heck does that work? And the tomb was his. I'll read that part for you one more time. And he placed him in Joseph's own new tomb that he had cut out of the rock. This is his. Blood, sweat, and tears, because you know that when you mess around with a rock and a chisel, it's not like it's just going to all come out easy. I can't even change a bolt on something without scarring the middle finger off of my one hand or tearing something up. He made this tomb. Luke. There was a man named Joseph, a member of the council, a good and upright man, who had not consented to their decision and action. He came from the Judean town of Arimathea, and he himself was waiting for the kingdom of God. Going to Pilate, he asked for Jesus' body. Then he took it down, wrapped it in linen cloth, and placed it in a tomb cut in the rock, one in which no one had yet been laid. It was preparation day, and the Sabbath was about to begin. Here, the first thing we notice is Luke tells us, good and upright man. He's a member of the council, but that also lets you know that there are people on the council that are not good, that are not upright. We've seen that as we've gone through the story. They're swayed by political favor, they're swayed by money, they're swayed by all sorts of things. He is good and upright. And we find out that of the 70, he didn't say yes. Remember, the trial is in the middle of the night, and they condemn Jesus, and what they would do is they would stand up, approach a thing, and cast your vote into the yes or the no. So everybody else walks up, yes, yes. Now think about the last time you watched C-SPAN or whatever news channel that you like, and it was the one dissenting vote. Everybody knows who that is. Everybody knows the one who didn't go along with the rest. He didn't go along with them. And his tomb, no one had been laid there. It was his, new, special, and it lets you know he had plans for it. Not necessarily that he had plans for Jesus to have it, because it would have taken so long for him to actually chisel the rock out that he probably wasn't a disciple then. This was for him, where he had prepared for himself and his family to go. We get to the Gospel of John. One of the younger disciples writes his gospel last and fills in all the little bubbles that we miss along the way. Now later, Joseph of Arimathea asked Pilate for the body of Jesus. Joseph was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly because he feared the Jewish leaders. With Pilate's permission, he came and took the body away, and he was accompanied by Nicodemus, the man who earlier had visited Jesus in the night. Now Nicodemus brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 75 pounds. Taking Jesus' body, the two of them wrapped it with the spices in linen strips. This was in accordance with the Jewish burial customs. At the place where Jesus was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden, a new tomb in which no one had ever been laid, because it was the Jewish day of preparation, and since the tomb was nearby, there they laid Jesus. Now here we find out that he is a secret disciple. That while he's good and upright, while he is an affluent man, he's a rich man, he's got some resources, he's still scared of all of the other leaders. And rightly so. Do you think that people in biblical times didn't have anxieties, weren't actually scared? He was scared. But even when you're scared, when you follow after Jesus and you think you're alone, you're not. Here we find Nicodemus, another member of the council. One that you saw earlier in John chapter 3. You know the chapter where you know that fancy verse that everybody knows? John 3:16? Well, that was to Nicodemus. The guy that came in the middle of the night because he didn't want everybody to know what was going on to say, hey, I think there might be something about you. Are you the guy? Are you not? And Jesus gives him these weird word puzzles, and he leaves going, I don't know what to do. And by the end, he gets it. When you think you're alone following after Jesus, God goes, oh, no. I've been working it out so you had somebody with you the whole time. And he brings 75 pounds of myrrh and aloe. Now, the typical custom was about 20. Now, you may be asking, well, why would you bring so much myrrh and aloe? The Hebrews did not embalm their bodies. They did not do what the Egyptians or the Orientals did with the mummification and taking out the soft tissue. So you had to combat the smell with something that was greater. So the more myrrh and the more aloe that you lined the strips with, the more it would suppress the decay. The more that it would suppress the smell creeping out of the crevices of the rock. And he brings all that he can carry. And now you do have to notice that they took Jesus' body down. We just think, oh, he went to the tomb and then he rose again. No. Joseph and Nicodemus went there, and maybe with a cloth like this, lowered Jesus' body down from way up on a cross. This isn't days or weeks afterwards where everything is dried. I was trying to cook a brisket thing for lunch today and got blood all over my arms, and that's just from a little piece of something. Can you imagine a body of a man that you have to carry? If you've seen The Passion of the Christ, you know that it wasn't just like, a few drops here or there. In accordance with their custom. Here's where things get interesting, because it is sundown of Passover before the Passover Sabbath. When Passover came, there was a Sabbath and then the regular Sabbath as the calendar fell. And so the struggle is they now have just a matter of small amount of time before they're not supposed to be doing anything. Sabbath comes and it's the day of preparation, as in you prepare everything you need to so that you don't do work tomorrow. They are now scrambling. When I say sweat running down, have you ever tried to do something? Like I look back at Scott, I go, dude, you didn't even break a sweat during all that craziness. He's like, you don't want to see under my shirt. When the pressure's on, suddenly something happens to your body. So they are rushing Jesus to the tomb, but doing it exactly in accordance. They don't just set him in and run away. They take their time. Now here's the struggle is, now what? It's Passover. You're supposed to be with your family, eating the Passover meal, the Passover Seder, celebrating that God passes over you and your people so that he can free you from slavery and bondage, and now they are unclean. Remember, you're not allowed to be around bodies. They are now ceremonially unable to be with their families because they're with Jesus. And who knows? Not the disciples. Why? Because the ladies come right away in the morning with myrrh and aloe. They're ready to do what was supposed to be done, and it had already been done. The part that connects for us, where we can put on Joseph's shoes, is that most of us live in the world of we know what happened at Easter. Most of us live in the, well, this is my 15th, he has risen indeed. Right? But how has it changed you? Maybe because you didn't really look at the story before this story. Maybe because you haven't asked, where are the chiseled areas in your life Maybe because you haven't asked, where is that pregnant darkness waiting for something to come to life? Where is that light flickering down in your soul that just needs something to fan it into a flame? When are your palms sweaty because you're feeling a bit anxious? When has God poked down inside and said, in spite of the fear, in spite of all of the people, I'm calling you? Today is not the come to Jesus moment for people that haven't. Today is the come to Jesus moment for all of you that have been here before and it has never changed your life. Because you are the religious people, just like Joseph. I am, you are, we all are, otherwise we wouldn't be here. Today is the moment that in spite of the struggle, in spite of the angst, in spite of the who knows what else is going on, that you choose to say, even though I've heard this story 30 times, this is the time. That you really let it sink in, that you realize that there are times that amongst the crowd of all of the religious folk, you have to embrace the reality that Jesus calls you to something more. Now we get to Easter Sunday, and where is Nicodemus and Joseph? Are they at the tomb? Are they in the story? No, because they're still religious Jews. They're unclean and they're not in the city anymore. They know that they can't be around. You live in exactly the same place. We know that Jesus has risen, but we haven't seen him fully come. We haven't seen the triumphant return with the white horse and the heavenly armies and all of these things that they make movies about. We haven't seen that. We live in this weird Friday, Saturday of he's there but not there. We live like Joseph, doing our best sometimes, waiting for the triumphant return, hopeful. But I will tell you, you won't experience the return or the triumph without pushing against that angst, without fighting against the sweaty palms, without feeling a little bit of fear and choosing to overcome, without deciding that today is the day that I step up. Today is the day that I step out in faith. Today's the day that I throw off that warm blanket of a Sunday pew sit so that I can go and eat lunch at grandma's house. That today is the day that maybe you lay down at night and you go, God, I don't know what's going on, but I think I need something more because I don't want this year to be like another year. I don't want to live in Friday and Saturday's wait. So that you can come and say, He is risen. He is risen indeed. Because it's more important than all of the other things going on in your life. And if you don't believe that, then you are a crazy person. What are you doing in here? It's 80 degrees outside. Right? Some of you should nod your heads because you should really believe that. We're here for a reason. Now's the time where you stir that faith within your life and say, Christmas was good, but whoo, Easter says that I have no fears for tomorrow. Let's pray.